Tech by Tips.
Hello and welcome to another Tech by Tips video. In today's video, we're going to be addressing a video request that I received regarding how to expose the applications that you have running in your Synology NAS to the public internet. So for this, you can follow the guide that I have created in my Tech by Tips GitHub repository. I'm going to put that link in the description below, but basically in Tech by Tips reference guides, you'll see this folder here named Exposing Your Synology NAS Hosted Apps to the Public Internet Securely. And here you'll have all the details, and I've included screenshots and everything so you can follow along and do what I'm going to talk about in this video. Let's get to that. So first, let's cover what's the point of this. Let's say now you have a Synology NAS and you have applications running inside it in Docker, like we have been doing in this channel for a while now, and you want to be able to access them from outside of wherever you have your NAS. Let's say you have your NAS in your home, or maybe you have it virtually running in a private host service. You want to be able to access that from outside without requiring a VPN or something like that. So this is the guide for you. So we're going to be covering three things here. The first thing is, how do you get a subdomain for your applications for free using Change IP? Then once we get our subdomain, then we're going to configure our router to pass the public traffic into our Synology NAS. And then we're going to make sure that the traffic for that specific application reaches our Docker container in our Synology NAS. And then we're going to validate whether our traffic is secure or not. And then we're going to go about how we can request an SSL certificate from Let's Encrypt using the Synology NAS and serve our application securely. So why would you do this? Well, you might be working on some awesome app maybe that you're creating and you want to share it with your friends or the world. Or maybe you just want to access your applications from outside your home. So any of those are good use cases for this. First in here, the prerequisite is going to be that we're going to have a Synology NAS. Right now, my NAS is using DSM 7.2, which is what this guide is going to be based on. And you have some applications that are running in Container Manager. So in my case, in Container Manager, I'm going to be exposing Vault Warden, which is a video that I'm working on, and it needs to be exposed through a secure connection. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. And the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to use images for this, because you need to go into the changeip.com website if you want to get a free subdomain. And you go into the link that I posted in the guide, and it's going to take you straight into this page that you're seeing here. You're going to be looking for your subdomain in here. They have a drop down on the right side where you can pick which of the domains that they own you want to use, and then you specify which subdomain you want to have inside that domain. So you need to put an entry and select a domain, and then you need to validate whether that's available or not. So when you click on the continue button, if it is available, then the drop down becomes that full subdomain that you wanted. If you get to this point, it means that yes, it's available and you can reserve it. So you click continue again, and then it says that it's for free, it's a dynamic DNS, so you're not going to pay for it. And then you click on the checkout button, and when you do that, then it's going to take you to this form. It looks kind of small here because it's a long page and I wanted to show it all in one single thing. But it basically asks you for your personal information. You need to provide that information so they know who owns this subdomain, like your address and stuff like that. And then you have to create an account, so they ask you for a password. If you already have an account, then you just click on already registered and then log in with your account. And they also ask you for the payment details, but as it says here, you're not going to pay anything. It's free, but they need to validate that you have a payment method. So you would add that there. You have several options. You have credit card, PayPal, or Bitcoin. And then once you fill all of that out, then you complete your order, and it's going to take you to the process until you are okay to reserve this subdomain. So that's how you get a free subdomain from changeip.com. Once you have that subdomain reserved, then you have your account. So you log into your account in Change IP. And the first thing that you're going to do is, once you're in your home page, you're going to click up here where it says Services and then DNS Manager. And that's where you manage all the dynamic DNS names that you own and where they point to. So once you click here, it's going to take you to a list of those domains that you have. And in this case, I want to work on this one that says mylab.changeip.co, which is the one I selected for this video. So then you just click on the name of the subdomain that you reserved, and then you're going to be able to make changes to that. So what I suggest you do is you come in here, you probably have an FTP entry and other stuff, so delete anything that is not either a star or an @ Why? Because the star allows you to create subdomains inside your subdomain without having to come back here and add in an entry for that. So you can create as many subdomains that you want using this. So you need the star and the @ and then you need to specify here on the value of your IP, the public IP of either your home if you're hosting at home, or your cloud instance if you're hosting it in the cloud. So you need to have a public IP for that, and that's what you're going to be putting here. In this case, you're just seeing the Google IP for the Google DNS, but this would be replaced by your IP. This is going to be telling Change IP, whenever you get a request for anything under mylab.changeip.co, send that traffic to this IP address that I told you here. And make sure that the entry updates every 30 seconds. And that's going to be all that you would need to do to configure this. You click the save button and you'll be good. Now the next thing that we need to do is, we already have our subdomain, and our subdomain is working and is pointing to our IP, but once that connection comes to our IP, our router is just dropping that connection because it doesn't know what that is and it just ignores it. So we need to go into our router, and we need to go in specifically into the firewall section of our router, and in there you will see that there is something that says port forwarding. It varies per router, per model and brand, so I cannot give you a specific way. You have to basically look for that in the guide for your specific model of the router, but usually follows that pattern. It's going to have firewall, and then within firewall, port forwarding. So in there you usually have an option that tells you that you need to create an entry. So you click on create entry, and then in there you have to pick the IP of the machine inside your network that you're going to forward that traffic to. It depends on your router. It could be just a drop down where you pick the name of the machine, or it could be a drop down where you pick the IP of your machine, or it could just be a field where you put the IP of your machine. So make sure that you put the IP of your NAS in there. So in my case, it's here. And then it usually gives you an option to define two things. Number one, the protocol that you're going to be using in transferring the data. So normally for most things on the internet, you use TCP. And for video and audio and stuff like that, you usually use UDP. I don't know which type of application you're going to be exposing, so I would just say expose both. So usually you get an option that says TCP, another that says UDP, and another one that says both. So select the one that says both, and then you have to specify the port in which you are going to receive that traffic. Now, this depends on your specific circumstance. For example, if you're not hosting anything anywhere else in your network, it is very likely that you're not going to be using port 443, which is the standard port for secure HTTP connections. So in that case, you would just select 443. But if you already have port 443 dedicated to another type of device or something else, then you need to pick another port. It can be any random port. So I would suggest to use something like 8443 in that case. Then you specify the port, and then you add that entry, and you make sure that it's active, and you apply it. Once you apply it, you should see something similar to this that tells you that it is active, and it's redirecting to that traffic to this IP, and it's only going to redirect anything that comes through port 8443 or 443, depending on what you choose. Up to this point, we are getting that communication into our router, and then our router says, okay, you requested something for this specific URL on port 443 or 8443. And then the router is going to be able to pass that traffic internally, so from the outside to your internal network into your NAS. But what happens here? Once the traffic gets to the NAS, at this point your NAS has no clue what to do with that traffic, so it just drops that traffic. So we need to also configure our Synology NAS to be able to handle that traffic. For that, we're going to go into our Synology NAS, and we're going to be going into the control panel. Inside that control panel, we're going to go into the login portal, and in there we're going to go into the advanced tab, and then inside the advanced tab we're going to click where it says reverse proxy. So what does a reverse proxy do? So once the NAS receives the communication, then it has a list of places that it can redirect that traffic to. So we're going to tell it, okay, this specific traffic that you're requesting for this URL is going to go to this specific container running in Container Manager. So we're going to go, and in this new pop-up that comes up, we're going to click where it says create, and once we do that, we're going to get this other pop-up window, and in this window we're going to go into the general, and then we're going to give it a name. Usually what I do is I give it the name of the application, and if I have several instances of that application, let's say for example I have production and development, then I would just put like the name /prod or /dev. Up to you, however you want it. The point is that you can recognize what you're redirecting to on this rule. And then on the source section, which is what you see here, is where we're identifying as the incoming traffic. So in this case, you would be putting that you're expecting secure traffic, so HTTPS. If that were not the case, if you want to serve unsecure traffic, you can just pick HTTP. But in this case, I'm going with HTTPS because I want to secure my traffic. And then on the host name, I'm going to put the URL for my specific service inside my subdomain. So my subdomain is mylab.changeip.co, but I have a specific service or application that is named Vault Warden. So I'm going to say vaultwarden.mylab.changeip.co, and that'll give me the full path so that I can recognize this traffic is specifically for Vault Warden. Again, we said that we're going to be listening on port A443 or 443, depending on your instance. You have to put the right port in here. And then this is going to be listening on that specific port for those requests that come to Vault Warden. And that's it for the source. Now we know where our traffic is coming from and what we have to listen for. But then we need to specify where we're going to redirect this traffic internally in our network. So this is a very important thing. My application is running without SSL internally. So I'm going to specify that the protocol is going to be HTTP. What does this mean? It means that the secure connection comes from the public internet to a router, from the router to our Synology NAS. And then since the Docker container is already inside the same machine, I don't really need to secure the traffic internally. So I'm just going to use HTTP. So the secure connection is terminated at the NAS level, and then all the communication inside the NAS is just with plain HTTP. So we have to say that we're going to redirect to the NAS IP, so that's localhost, because that's what the NAS recognizes itself as. And then we need to specify the port of that application that we are using in Docker or Container Manager. So in my case, the internal port of the container is port 80, but I'm exposing it in the NAS on port 8070. So I have to put the port where I'm exposing it in the NAS. So that's what you put here. And once you have set all of this up, you click the save button. And once you save that, then it'll create that entry in our reverse proxy rules. So we should see something similar to this, where it says that, the description is Vault Warden. We're going to be listening for vaultwarden.mylab.changeip.co on port 8443, and we're going to send it to the NAS on port 8070. And that is great. That means that up to now, the NAS knows what to listen for and where to send the traffic. So now, in theory, we should be able to go into our browser and we should be able to put that address, https vaultwarden.mylab.changeip.co, in my case with a specific port. If not, it would just be up to there, right? If you're just using 443. And then we should get a reply. But the problem is that the reply that we're going to get, it's going to be with a warning. It's going to tell you, here's the website that you're requesting, but we have a problem here because they don't have a trusted SSL certificate, so they might not be genuine. You have to be careful. And then if you want to go into the application, you have to click on this proceed to link at the bottom, but you will always have that not secure warning on top. And why is that? Because if we validate and we see what that certificate that we're using is, we'll see that it is a self-signed certificate by Synology. So we're using the default self-signed certificate, which has no real certification authority, so there's no real way to validate that this is genuine. So that's why we get that message. So that's the next step that we're going to perform in our process. Fortunately, we have a nice way in the Synology NAS to request for SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt. So if we go into the control panel, security, and then we go into certificate, we'll see the SSL certificates that we currently have. And you will see that you have the default certificate here, which is the one that was being served when we tried to get to the page. And if you see, it is default, it applies to everything right now, and it's a self-signed certificate. And that's the reason why we get that warning. So if you see, it's saying that it's using that for that application that I'm serving. So I don't want that. I want a valid, genuine, authorized certificate that'll give me credibility. So what I'm going to do is, in here, I'm going to click where it says the add here in the add button, and we're going to get this pop-up window. And in this pop-up window, we have to put simple information. So it'll be the domain name. So this is the URL that we're serving. Again, it's the same that we try to go to in our browser. So it's vaultwarden.mylab.changeip.co. And we need to put that also here where it says subject alternative name, because that's going to be the information in the certificate saying, okay, this certificate is for this specific URL that hosts this application. And then you also need to provide your email, because with your email, you're going to get notifications about the life of that certificate. So when you request a certificate and the certificate is close to expiring in the future, you'll get an email saying, okay, your certificate is valid until this time, so you better ask for a renewal. Or, your certificate actually expired, so it's no longer valid. All of that is going to go to that email that you specify in here. Once we provide all of those details, then we can click on the done button, and then we'll see, well, there's two cases, right? If everything goes hunky-dory and perfectly, you would see that you get a new certificate and that's added in here. But you might also get a pop-up message saying, yeah, you need to validate your information, and then you resubmit your information usually, and that works. So in this case, once I submit it, then it tells me that I did get an SSL certificate for Vault Warden, and it was issued by R10, which is one of the servers for Let's Encrypt, and it is for my vaultwarden.mylab.changeip.co website. So once we have this is great news. It means that the Synology NAS submitted a request for a certificate to Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt did the ACME validation with our server. So it basically tries to connect to our server to check that the server can actually respond with the proper information. So it knows that you do own that domain. And then once it validates that, then it gives you that certificate that you're going to be using. And then the Synology NAS stores that certificate to use it. So up to here, we're good. The point is that we have a certificate. But if we try to go to our website again, it still is going to give us an error, because even though we have acquired a certificate, we have actually not assigned that certificate to anything. So you see that the 4 is blank. We need to fix that. So the way we fix that is we select the certificate here by clicking on it, and then we click on the settings button, and then we get this pop-up. And in this pop-up, it basically lists all of the services that we're running in our Synology NAS. And in here, you will see that you would have an entry for your reverse proxy that you created before. You would see that it says the service is this one, and the certificate currently assigned to it is Synology. So we need to click on this drop down and look for the new SSL certificate that we received from Let's Encrypt, and then we need to click OK. And what that's going to do is that's going to flip that certificate and use the valid certificate for all the requests that come to this URL. Once we have done that, we can go back into our browser and we can go to the website. So in my case, vaultwarden.mylab.changeip.co on port 8443, and that's HTTPS. And then when we load the website, it no longer has that warning. That means that it's using the proper certificate. If we click here on the icon that talks about the security, we'll see that it says connection is secure. And if we click where it says connection is secure, we'll see that there's an option to view the certificate that we're using, and then we'll see something like this. And it's telling us that now we are using the valid certificate from Let's Encrypt that was assigned for the vaultwarden.mylab.changeip.co URL. So now it doesn't complain. It knows that if Let's Encrypt said it's okay, it's because it's genuine, and we are able to serve our traffic securely to the public internet, and we have access to our application from the public internet. Success! Great, we have our application working. That was the point of this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. I always try to post good content that you request, and I think you might benefit from it. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get notified about those videos whenever I post them. And also, you should not be getting any ads on my videos. I'm not monetizing the channel. If you want to support me to continue creating videos like this of good quality for you, feel free to go into the link in the description below. And there's a link to PayPal there where you can donate. And there's also a Bitcoin address that you can donate using Bitcoin if you want. So that's going to be it for this one. I hope you liked it. I'll see you in the next video.